Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask me why is it that he is getting sore triceps from doing chin-ups. He doesn't understand. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. All right, this is a great topic, and this is one of those things that goes to show why the chin-up is such a fantastic exercise, why it's an exercise that I advocate, an exercise I promote for overall size and strength. It's one of the most fantastic exercises out there. Now, the reason you're getting soreness in your triceps, I know I've discussed in the past some of the methods that can cause you to get sore. And soreness isn't always indicative of growth, but what soreness can be indicative of is anything from too much training volume to too infrequent of training, novel training stimulus, and an excessive focus on eccentrics. Now, with the chin-up, because you're dealing with a body weight exercise that oftentimes requires you to lower the weight fairly controlled, meaning there's a lot of exercises you can skip the eccentrics on, there's a lot of exercises you can do really fast eccentric reps on. And if people don't know what eccentric reps are, they're the lowering of the weight, or in this case, lowering of your body, which is the weight that you're lifting, slowly is your eccentric portion of your rep. And it doesn't have to be slowly, that's what I'm pointing out here. It's the lowering of the weight, and the concentric is the lifting of the weight, so the pulling yourself up. Now, because it's got a slow eccentric for safety purposes, it's just really difficult to safely perform a chin-up with a fast eccentric. You could hurt yourself because you're pulling down to a dead hang, a stretch. It can be problematic. There are a couple of muscles that get put into a stretch position at the bottom of the exercise, right? There's two muscles, the latissimus dorsi and the long head of the tricep. Long head of the tricep, which is where you're going to feel that soreness. And what we also know is that stretch position movements tend to be more susceptible to eccentric loading. All right, and in this case, you're getting the long head of the tricep is being eccentrically loaded at the bottom of the exercise. And because you're having to do it slowly to keep from hurting yourself, it's putting an extra focus on the lowering part, the eccentric part of the rep. We know focusing on eccentric parts of the rep can lead to soreness. All right, they can lead to soreness because it causes micro tearing in the fascia around the muscle tissue. And people need to understand that's not the same thing as protein disruption that we talk about that causes growth. It's a different type of trauma that leads to soreness. It doesn't necessarily lead to growth. But the fact of the matter is you're getting a lot of long head stimulation. Well, the interesting thing about that, what is the hardest part of the tricep for most people to develop? The long head, right? The lateral and the medial head are the easiest ones to develop. Why? Because they're used on almost every single chest press. All your dips, all your bench presses, whether it's incline, decline, flat, whether it's a barbell, whether it's a dumbbell, it's all the same. Those two heads of the tricep get the most focus. The long head really only gets worked, the only press it really gets worked significantly on is going to be on the overhead press. But all your chest presses, the other two heads get most of the work, and the way most people perform tricep exercises, because they're only moving the elbows, those two heads get worked. You have to have shoulder extension to really get to the long head sometimes to recruit it effectively. So it tends to be the hardest part of the tricep to develop. Yet, interestingly enough, the chin-up can make that part of the tricep sore. One of the interesting things about the chin-up, it actually stimulates enough to cause soreness because of the eccentric loading. It actually stimulates the hardest part of the tricep for most people to develop. So when you look at it from that perspective, someone who wants a well-developed physique, a well-rounded physique, you see how the long head of the tricep being stimulated on it in addition to all your other pressing could be a good thing. I mean, the chin-up, most people think of it as a back and a bicep exercise, right? That's what people think of that it works. But what we found with various EMG studies on the chin-up, it does a lot of things that lat pull-downs and rows and other stuff don't do. Now, barbell rows, we could argue done correctly, work the posterior chain, lower back, all of that, right? They have benefits that chin-ups and lat pull-downs and pull-ups and all that stuff don't have. They work other muscles, but all through the lower part of the body. The chin-up works more muscles in the upper body than just about any other exercise. And it works things that the lat pull-downs don't work. And so when people try to compare the two, they're not a good comparison because the chin-up works a lot of stabilizer muscles. It puts certain stretch reflexes on different muscles. And what you find with the chin up, it is an amazing exercise because, yes, it works the biceps. In fact, we've got studies, and like I said, EMG studies, don't take them as gospel. They're a good starting point. They get you in the ballpark, but they're not accurate enough to always say things definitively. You don't want to look at them and see two exercises that are only 10 to 15% different in an EMG study and actually say that that's enough, that the one that's 15% higher is actually superior for that muscle. They're not that accurate. They are good enough to say if an exercise works a muscle strongly, moderately, weakly, or not at all. That's what they're good at doing. They can give you those four ideas, but they can't do a comparative to the extreme that people try to take them to. But we know that the chin up is a strong stimulator of the biceps, right? There's plenty of studies showing that. It's also a strong stimulator of the lats, the latissimus dorsi. So it works those muscles heavily, but when we study it compared to a lot of other back exercises, there are a lot of muscles that the chin up works as a strong stimulator of that we don't think of as exercises, the back exercises would stimulate. And what I mean is the long head of the tricep. Now, when you think about it, the long head of the triceps, the hardest one for most people to develop, it gets the least development. The chin up hits it. Chin up hits it. How about the chest? There's data showing that the pectoralis minor, the upper chest up here, gets stimulated strongly on the chin up if you go all the way up. The tricep gets stimulated if you go all the way down. If you go all the way up, the upper chest gets worked. What's the hardest part of the chest for most people to develop? The upper chest. The rear delts get hit. Now that's normal for most rowing and pulling motions, but which part of the deltoid is least developed for most people? Most people struggle with rear delt development. It hits the rear delt strongly. How about the abdominals? We found that chin-ups actually work the abdominals just as much as a crunch does. They seem to be in the same range in terms of stimulation. So the chin-up actually helps build the abs also, the abdominal muscles. Now, wait a minute. These are four muscles that tons of people struggle with. And normally I would say the chin-up is great for athletes. But what about people who are looking for a balanced physique? What about people who are chasing that whole aesthetics thing? The chin-up works four muscles that most ab exercises, or that a lot of back exercises don't hit, that are weak points aesthetically for a lot of people. The long head of the tricep, the upper chest, the rear delt, and the abdominals are all strongly stimulated by the chin-up, in addition to the fact that it works the biceps, the forearms, the lats, all that. The chin-up is one of the best overall upper body developers out there because basically every single muscle in the entire upper body that the bench press doesn't work effectively, or that the overhead press might not work effectively, gets hit by the chin-up. The only thing the bench press doesn't hit that the chin-ups don't also strong stimulate is going to be the side delts. But you can see that if, say, you put a lot of focus on the bench press or any sort of chest pressing, the chin-up or the weighted chin-up will actually balance out your physique because it actually hits every single muscle and head of the muscle that the bench press misses on the upper body. It actually works them to a very strong degree other than the side delt. So it actually can balance out what the bench press or any chest press fails to hit. That means the chin-up is a fantastic overall body balancer because it works so many standard weak points, at least 3 to 4 weak points that are very, very common upper body weak points for people. The chin-up is a strong stimulator of. So anyone who's struggling with upper body development, the chin-up is one of the best exercises ever. It's fantastic. And it's interesting, that a lot of people note that it does give them soreness in the long head of their triceps. And you know why it's giving soreness in the long head of the tricep for a lot of people, but not necessarily everyone? Because a lot of those people with the rest of their training aren't stimulating the long head of their tricep much because they're not putting any focus on it. It's probably lagging for them. So when you do any eccentric loading with the chin up, it's making that muscle, that head of the muscle sore because you don't normally work it. And so again, it's a novel stimulation in addition to the fact that you're getting a strong eccentric focus. So the chin up for those people is actually hitting one of your weak points. So keep doing it, brother. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.